Demitri Downing here from Team MITA, present with other MITA team members.
Whoop, whoop.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, Destinee Blanco. Rita Valenzuela.
And we are here. This is our first ever post-MITA recap. So as you know, MITA has re-engaged the educational aspect of our meetings. And in case for those of you who missed it, it was downstairs at the hotel. And if you're interested in future educational forums, make sure you pay close attention to our emails and venture on downstairs if there's extra room. If you haven't signed up yet, if you didn't sign up, maybe you can get involved in the next one. We have all kinds of interesting topics coming for you over the next few months. Last month, we had APS talking about solar energy, something that cultivators might be interested in. This month, August 30th, we had, because we are now post-event, we had some very interesting conversations about opportunities in the cannabis space regarding to increasing your sales and budtender education, sort of more in general. And I'm going to, of course, I'm wearing my Weed Maps shirt because we're here talking about budtenders.
Shout out Weed Maps.
Weed Maps hat and Weed Maps shirt. They don't even sponsor us, but that's how much I love Weed Maps. I give them all kinds of love. So, but let me quickly introduce our guests to you who were present on August 30th last week. We have Kurt and Brian. Who wants to go first?
Absolutely.
Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself again to the MITA audience.
Outstanding. My name is Brian Offenbonger. Everybody calls me Offenbonger, a little play on my last name.
I love that.
Yeah. Somebody thought they were funny, and it's absolutely amazing what it turned into. What I do is I help companies, both brands and dispensaries, drive more sales, kind of in a bottom line summary. Kurt?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Kurt. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of SeedTalent. SeedTalent has emerged as the largest employee enablement platform in cannabis. We support about 1,400 dispensaries across 23 states, really work as a content aggregator, creating a central destination for all of the learning that goes into this space. And then we love working with Brian and the Offenbonger folks. And some of the stuff that we talked about at last week's session was our data-driven learning offering, where we tie into point-of-sale systems, identify underperformers in certain categories like basket size, and then leverage that to deliver training to really increase the efficacy of those folks within the retail stores.
Okay, so what I want to get into is I want you guys to talk a little bit more about what is data-driven learning, and also how do you increase budtender sales, which is what the topic was last Thursday for those, last Wednesday for those of you who weren't there. So who wants to go first?
The reality, if you look at most dispensaries, if you take what their top performing budtender is producing, and then you take that in a store average, there's quite a gap there. And in a lot of dispensaries, the top selling budtender may be selling 15, 20, 25% more than the average ticket in the store. So a dispensary, they can identify what their opportunity is, because their best selling budtender, they're not getting different customers. They don't have different products to sell. They're just doing something more with the customers they get. And that's what our talk was all about. We gave people specific techniques that they can use with their budtenders to help their budtenders drive at average ticket or boost the average sale. Because again, we're not going to take every budtender in that place and turn them into a superstar. Mm-hmm. But if we can make incremental improvements with each and every one of them, at the end of the day, that has quite a bit of impact on the business.
And can you describe those 7 ways? Because that's,
Sure. We talked about, techniques like showing high value products, showing your premium products. We talked about add-on opportunities, add-on, cross-selling, upselling, where to do it, how to help your budtenders do it, how to bring all of that together so that they can use these techniques. Mm-hmm. And we also emphasize the importance of sales training. Because the reality is these are skills that can be learned. That top selling budtender is not doing anything different than anyone else can. McDonald's proven they can take 16-year-old kids and teach them how to say, hey, can I supersize that for you? Hey, would you like to add fries with that for you? And that adds phenomenal amounts of incremental revenue. And so that's kind of what we focused on, what we talked a lot about. And then Kurt brought in the segment of his platform using actual POS system data will enable a dispensary operator to see where their problems are, see where their opportunities are, however you want to label them. And I'm going to let him speak to that more than me, but it's a really powerful combination. Training with specific focus on what the people need, wow, it's a powerful, powerful force.
Yeah. And how does SeedTalent optimize employee productivity and performance?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tie it in with a bit with what Brian was mentioning. So Brian's training is really great. It's awesome when you can offer that to the entire store. And one of the challenges, though, that we really work at tackling is, after those training sessions, how do we identify those employees who are in need of additional support on an ongoing basis? And so, as Brian was alluding to, offering that training to everybody, set that baseline is really key. But then sometimes continuing to drive training to people who are already your top performers actually can have a boomerang effect. And so one of the things that we do is tie into that point of sale system. We look at some of those major KPIs, such as average basket size, transaction time, percentage of upsell that happens at the point of pickup. And we're able to then automatically deliver additional supportive training content to those employees, really frame it in hey, we've recognized an opportunity for your professional growth, because we want this to be an opportunity where it's not just about increasing sales so that owners and managers, leave with more cash in their pocket, but how do we make those folks more confident in their roles, give those folks additional opportunities for revenue at the Budtender level. And what our system does is really leverage that operational data to be more efficient in the delivery of those types of training. And then most importantly, actually measure the results once they take one of those trainings, either in a digital course, or we do have the ability to even plant a set like a flag in the system if you get Offenbonger to come in and support in an in-person training, but then actually be able to tangibly measure success for 14, 30, 60, 90 days out to show whether or not that training actually improved the performance in those categories at an individual employee level.
And then you grab a testimonial from that company that you helped.
Absolutely. One thing I want to emphasize as well that we talked to these people a lot about in our session was the fact that budtenders that sell properly are always the ones that have superior customer satisfaction scores. Very simple. We appreciate people that do a professional job as long as they're showing a genuine interest in us. And if I walk into a dispensary and you as a budtender are showing a genuine interest in me and you suggest a product that you think I might like, I for sure am at least going to be receptive to hearing what you have to say.
Right.
And the reality is an overwhelming percentage of the time, I'm going to buy it. And that's what we wanted to share. We want budtenders to understand that offering ideas and suggestions is a way of providing superior customer service. And data shows over and over and over again, those that do those kinds of things are the ones that have the happiest customers, they earn the most, and their business is the ones that are the strongest. And as I told everybody, hey, the economy may be bad, but nobody said we had to participate in it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a medicine, so it should be treated as that. You're trying to figure out what works for the person in front of you.
And I'm thinking about the value of the data and the information and the different methodologies that you have, because a lot of people think that I know retail, but this is nuanced, and over the years and years of both your companies and both your experiences, you've acquired a lot of methodologies and techniques that they might not be aware of, that they think they may have brought over from their retail experience at a taco shop or something,
Yeah.
One of the things I think Kurt might echo as well, there's a difference between knowing and applying. I have been in over 1,000 dispensaries across the United States in the last 2 years. And I am not going to tell you how many I bought stuff from. But the reality, in 2 years, I've had one budtender ever suggest a product to me. Just one. Over 2 years. I've been in over 1,000 in multiple states. The reality is whether you know it or whether you're using it are two different things.
Right.
And one of the things we emphasized in our discussion was you as a business owner are going to get what you expect and what you inspect. And that's centuries old. So if you are teaching your people these techniques, you need to have your managers on the sales floor making sure they're using them. Just like McDonald's did with kids, asking them, would you like fries with that?
Right.
And if we can keep things at that basic level, keep things really simple, here are great techniques, here is how you can use them. Kurt's got data that he's going to automatically share with your employees as well as the management team on what they need to improve on. And then we as a business inspect what we're going to ask them to do. We'll see results.
Are you kind of like the Gordon Ramsay of
Could very well be,
kitchen nightmares? That's what I'm like picturing. And then obviously you're adding SeedTalent to more of
I like to go in and I am excited for the opportunities that they all have, because every single one of us has opportunities to sell more. And I want them to be enthusiastic about it. I want them to go in and I want them to have fun. and I want their customers to benefit from what the heck they're doing.
Yeah.
Simple.
And Kirk,
Can I
maybe you can
jump
help.
in on
Oh,
this?
sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Kirk.
Well, I just wanted to jump in on this because I think this topic is one that, like, sometimes when we get going on this stuff, we like jump right into sales. And I think like sometimes that we've got to step back a little bit on, Demitri, like the way that you phrase the question, right, is, and I think to the point that Brian's making, is there's a ton of transferable skills that people bring into this space. If they're coming from traditional retail, those same sales techniques apply. But also on the flip side of it is if you're coming from the legacy market, like oftentimes you have an amazing in-depth knowledge of this plant and the products and the way that it can connect and benefit the people. And I think some of the challenges that we've encountered and where the data actually ends up supporting both sides of the equation is it becomes this kind of like, legacy versus the Chads conversation when we start to look at sales. And these are actually like very combined efforts where if you are really passionate about the plant, you really feel that you have a deep understanding of products, your role is to connect as many people as possible with this amazing plant and those products. And if you leverage the techniques that Offenbonger talks about, it's not a bad thing, right? And I always use the example of when I was in college, I smoked a lot of weed. And eventually my drug dealer said, you smoke a lot of weed. You should try concentrates. And I then now have been basically a daily concentrate consumer. But had that salesperson not identified that based off of my consumption data, that I would be a good candidate for trying concentrates, I would have missed that entire category. And so if we find ways, I think, to bridge the gap and not just focus so much on selling, not just focus so much on the plant, but understand where those areas overlap around creating best-in-class patient and customer experiences in this space, the sales come. And that's where I think the combination between what we've been able to do with Brian and what we were able to present at last week's session is really fun, because it's really about how do you marry those traditional techniques that really do work with the data that says who needs that additional support that ultimately leads to better patient and customer experiences. And oh, by the way, ensures profitability and sustainability for the industry that we all care about. So it is like, I just am always cautious about just jumping right into certain stuff, because I think setting the stage and recognizing that some budtenders are uncomfortable with that concept, but you take a step back, this is really about the betterment of the space as a whole, and everything shouldn't be sold on BOGOs or buy ones or, feed a new dispensary agent or a new customer and get 75 specials.
We spend a lot of time making sure that budtenders understand that providing superior customer service means suggesting products and servicing them the right way. And when you're in buying an ounce of flour, you ask, hey, do you need papers to go with that?
Right.
Simple, basic stuff, because we've all done that. We've all bought flour. We get home, we're out of papers. We break a bowl on our bong, whatever the case may be. One other thing I think is really important to understand is this. We are in a unique space. So although there may be retail concepts that people have from under other industries, there are cultural nuances to cannabis that's important for people to remember. There are cultural nuances that are important to the budtenders that are servicing our customers. It's important that we keep these things in mind. We need to design programs that these people are comfortable with. We need to design training that they can use and actually apply that fits within their job and in their dispensary. Let's have some fun along the way too, right?
Yeah, that's what Mita's for.
There you go.
So I'm thinking, we get people from a budtender with a dream to an owner with an X strategy watching these podcasts and stuff. And there's a couple questions I want to ask, and I'll let you guys think about this for a second. One is that, say I'm a CEO or a manager and I'm watching this, I'm like, these guys really know what I'm talking about. I wonder how much they cost and how their service works and how much we have to pay them. And then, so that's like, first. And then the second question is, how do I explain this to my decision maker, owner, whoever it might be, in the 30 seconds that I have that say, hey, I watched this podcast. These guys are really sharp. They can help our whole team. We need to bring them in. And then he says, I'm busy looking to buy I was going to do a tattoo voice because I was a Fantasy Island fan.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, boss. I'm sorry. I'm busy looking to buy another dispensary in Oklahoma. I really don't care how our retail is working in Arizona, but we need this kind of. So the two questions I want to ask, who wants to take which one, is first of all, both of you talk about how your business
30-second
works. And then both of you guys explain, like, what's that 30-second pitch that the manager needs to make to the quote unquote owner to say, we
need SeedTalent.
we need
Offenbonger.
Yeah, we need them here. I
Yeah.
heard about these guys. I want them here. So who wants to
You want to go first or?
I'm happy to. I mean, we do have a minute-long explainer video, so if you can edge out another 30 seconds from the owner, you can just give them a video that explains the whole thing. But yeah, our 30-second pitch is, retail is the tip of the spear for the entire cannabis industry, and we need to empower the folks behind the counter with the information they need to be successful. We need to implement a strategy around good, better, best, and teach our folks how to sell up and down that to maximize our margins, and SeedTalent's going to give us the capabilities to do that.
And how do you charge your services? Is it a one-time thing? Is it an ongoing thing?
Yeah, so we're a SaaS business, so a software as a service. It's a subscription-based business where they pay it's really $199 to $999 depending on like the number of locations that they have per month. It's a monthly recurring charge. It allows them to upload and host their own content, get access from hundreds of different brands across the country. In Arizona, we've got dozens of the top brands all in one spot. But generally, they're going to be looking either at free access, which will be something I'll big emphasize for folks that are, on a margin pinch. They can actually access a lot of SeedTalent stuff for free. But if they want to leverage like the data-driven learning and ability to host their own content, it ranges from $199 to $999 a month.
Excellent.
On my end, we do three things to help dispensaries. Number one, we help them with what's called local SEO services so that they have top dominant search engine rankings and great visibility online in all the places they need to. Mm-hmm. Number two thing we help them with is what we call a customer experience platform where we can help them do web chat, generate reviews, take all through one central dashboard, all social listening channels, all this type of thing. And then last, what we've been talking about, what we talked about at the MITA meeting last week was how to drive more Budtender sales.
You're really good at this time thing.
What's that?
You're really good at this time thing.
I'm telling you.
The MITA meeting last week.
That's exactly correct.
Go ahead. And drive more sales.
Yeah. And what I would suggest, most of my services have a monthly recurring fee to them. Most of them run several $100s a month. They're not expensive at all. The sales training we'll do either online, live. We do that 3 times a year. We will provide on-demand access for a subscription fee per individual. Plus, if you're running a meeting, I've done in-person events where I'll go in and do training in person as well. The biggest way to justify what we do for them, especially on the Budtender training side, is go to Offenbonger, just like it sounds and is on the screen, offenbonger.com/calculator. And on that web page, you will be able to enter in what the average order value is on your store, what the average order value is of your top selling Budtender. You then input your number of transactions a day, the number of stores you have, and the number of days a week you're open. That will calculate for you on a yearly basis what your opportunity is. If all of your Budtenders were selling the same way your big Budtender was selling, this is how much more money you would make. Mm-hmm. And the best thing I know with 30 seconds to go into a dispensary owner and justify spending a couple $100s on training is to go in and show them what their opportunity is. Mm-hmm. Because if I deal with multi-store locations, if I'm dealing with someone here in Arizona, a typical store in Arizona that has 2 or more stores is leaving anywhere from $1.3 million on up on the table. Mm-hmm. And to spend a couple of $100s to go try to get $1.3 million, not a bad exchange.
No, absolutely. I'd like to know if you guys have any good horror stories or good success stories. I'm just thinking to myself here in the Arizona market, one of the biggest, I can use an example over here. There's a mom and pop operation, and then 500 feet away, there's an MSO operation. The mom and pop operation spends a lot of time with its budtenders and working with them, and it's doing triple the sales that the MSO operation is doing. And if the MSO out there is listening, they should bring you guys in to try to help them understand, because I see exactly what you guys see, help them understand, because the brands that we know that hang out at that MSO, that one location, always tell us, well, the budtenders are just miserable. They're just unhappy, and they kind of badmouth their own experience there, so it's like there's a lack of training and stuff, but I'm sure you guys could help with that.
You know what amazes me about that? No, I want to expand on that. One of the things that really amazes me about that, especially in Arizona, is budtenders can get tips, and when you can get tips and you're in a service business, you would think personality would shine,
right?
Mm-hmm. But I get it, because I walk into these dispensaries. I walked into a huge MSO just a few days ago, and I don't even normally shop there. I placed an online order. I walk in, they don't have my online order. Did the budtender suggest any other options to me? Did the budtender do anything other than say, you know what, this happens all the time? That's all. That's it.
Yeah.
They handed me their menu and that was it. Not a suggestion, not even an I'm sorry, just this happened all the time.
Right.
And part of my issue, because this is the space I work in, I understand you talked about horror stories. Well, let's just read what's going on. Everybody's complaining about their sales, every single one.
Yeah.
And what Kurt and I are talking about is doing more with what you already have. We're not talking about bringing one more person through the door. We're not talking about spending one more dollar on marketing. What we are talking about, spending a little bit of time, spending a little bit of attention, getting your rear from the office out onto the sales floor to make sure they're doing what they should be doing. And it'll be amazing of what kind of incremental improvement you'll see happen in your business.
Yeah.
And Kurt, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add to that though, and again, I think you'll pick up a theme, and Brian does a great job keeping me honest on the topic at hand. But I think one other thing that ties into that, as Brian was mentioning on the tip side, is there's an opportunity, for I think the ownership structures from MSO down to single store to really recognize the importance of aligning compensation models for everybody in the business with that performance. And that's where some of the data comes in, is like with the data-driven learning, one of the things that we saw as a real opportunity is not just the ability to deliver that content, but to really help owners and managers be able to justify increased compensation for those employees that are really taking and increasing that revenue. And I think that's one of the things, as you mentioned, MSOs, we have a lot of MSO clients that we're working with, and there's certainly a myriad of opportunities for improvement for them. But there's also, I think, there is a hunger and a recognition now that if they don't change some of the ways they're doing things, they're not going to be able to hire, they're not going to have great customer service and all these things. And so what data-driven learning has allowed some of these groups to do is actually go in and see at an individual employee level, wow, Johnny is really that much more productive than Susie or vice versa. And then so I do think it's a multifaceted thing that doesn't just relay into, increasing sales. It's increasing sales come when that customer experience is better and people want to shop with you and they trust your budtenders. And that's what we see at more mom and pops, right? The ownership is on the floor, to Brian's point. They're making sure that the menu is curated for the community they serve. They're making sure that they have brands on the shelf that represent the consumer purchase patterns that folks are looking for. And so I am always just very cautious when it just comes to that the pressure falls to the budtender. I think we as an industry have an opportunity to do better. And it's a combination between having the resources, that Brian offers as it relates to the training and the SEO and some of those great things, and then tying that in with the data that allows somebody, to your point, that may have business ventures all over the country, which hopefully they're not doing too many things in opening up new Oklahoma dispensaries. But, that they're able to then look at that and say, hey, the math is telling me that Brian's training is working, that Susie is improving performance. And if she hits this threshold, we're going to tie her in with the benefits of the business. I think that's a missing piece in this whole conversation around the challenges that the industry is having, is really how do we demonstrate value throughout the entire equation? And value is utility divided by price. And that's where you see so many folks. And I love Arizona. I've been going to spring training down in Arizona my entire life. But when you have an industry that has BOGOs on everything, buy 5, get 1s, that's an industry that's not yet focused on the value of the products that are being served and the interactions that are happening at retail. And I think that's why we get so excited to really tie that data in, because it makes it black and white that there's so many opportunities for improvement.
I think but both of your expertise might help those Oklahoma dispensaries succeed. The ones that are failing. I mean, competition is a natural part of life. So you want every bit of knowledge and talent and skill available out there to work with you.
Yeah, one of the realities though, the Kurt's platform helps a lot with. Kurt, I want to just one of the platforms that Kurt really helps with. You can use that data to determine where you want to staff as well. Let's use Arizona as an example. We have the Super Bowl coming in this year. We have the golf tournament comes in. We have Barrett Jackson comes in. All these types of things. I want my heavy hitting budtenders that produce results when I'm busy, when my traffic counts are high, when I have periods in Arizona where I have a big influx of tourists. That's great for me too. And Kurt's data is something that I can use to determine, taken away from gut, taken away from instinct, and use hard data to determine who I want to use and where I want to use them.
And that also incentivizes the low performing budtenders to step up their game.
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
I know a few dispensaries in Arizona. I know I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. The Raul at the Mint, he sounds like he worked with you guys at some point because you guys have the same flow, the same analysis, same stuff. And I tell all these other dispensaries in Arizona, and they don't do it. It's like they've never talked to you guys, and they need to talk to you guys to have that level of expertise. And I meet them. I'm like, you guys should really, check out what Raul's doing. He really understands the nuances like you do. But Raul's not going to share those secrets, but you guys
I'll
are.
bet Raul's out on the floor. I'll bet Raul's engaged with his budtenders. I'll bet Raul knows what's going on. And that's not sexy stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like it's talking to the investors. It's not like it's talking to somebody in Oklahoma. It's not like playing fantasy football. It's work.
Yeah.
And if you want to work, want to do the right things, you'll get the right reward. If not, you can cry about how bad things are.
I think that's one of the reasons why he doesn't have such a big turnover rate for employees. He's got, if you notice, his team there is solid.
He builds up personal
like
relationships.
A family there, and everybody there is
but they can't, call him Raul and say, hey, teach us how you win, teach us your tricks. But you guys have that same skill set and knowledge. It's the exact same stuff that he does so well. And everybody says, well, Raul, how do you do it so well? He's not going to share it with everyone, but there's certain tricks and certain skills that you guys have that I'm just very.
But let's just emphasize one thing that makes Raul is him.
Yeah.
No matter what, Kurt and I can share all this stuff and all these techniques and all that, but if you're not going to use it, don't waste your time.
Right.
Yep.
I was just going to say,
my hat's off to him.
The Mint's been an early adopter of SeedTalent. That Raul gave us a chance, really early in the market when we were first launching, and shout out Tangi. She's out doing a great job. And Raul and that team is doing amazing things. But I think, as the point that Brian just made is there's no silver bullets in cannabis. And I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of folks are looking for is, implementing SeedTalent isn't going to fix your business. Doing Offenbonger training isn't going to fix your business. These are tools in the tool belt when we take on a holistic approach. And these just provide, again, the data or the course material or whatever it may be to really support that. But again, you got to give a shit about what you're doing, like the folks at the Mint do, because that is just felt like, throughout these businesses. And that's, I grew up in small business. And I think that's one of the things that so many people, to your point, are worried about that exit or worried about that next acquisition, that they're forgetting that a lot of these things are solved with small business problems. It's, it's caring about the people who walk through the door. It's creating best in class experiences. And it's just generally caring about that experience beyond just making the sale that day. And I think that's something the Mint has done really well. I think, we've had a great relationship with the folks at JARS. These are folks that have bought in and are doing the work, and then are now starting to look around and say, what systems are out there that are going to support the best practices that we already know we should be doing. And that's really the role that I think, like for us at SeedTalent, we're the support infrastructure for the people who give a shit about what they're doing already, but just need a little bit more tech support on the back end.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to criticize any of the other Arizona dispensaries out there.
No.
I just wrote Raul and the Mint as the gold standard because I learn about how to conduct business, how to treat employees, how budtenders should be tracked and helped and supported. From every time I walk in there, I learn something new. It's absolutely extraordinary. And then I walk into other dispensaries, and maybe an owner hasn't been there in a week or two.
You don't even know who the owner is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and you can see, and then there's certain MSOs and stuff where you walk in there and some of the employees they're not even, they're checked out.
They're unmotivated.
Just clocking in, clocking out.
Wait, the way things are going, Kurt and I are getting ready to start our own version of dispensary rescue, a little bit on that bar rescue.
That's actually great.
Brian can be John Tapper.
That's what I was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant.
I think Mita should do
We would be
something
right
like
behind
that.
That's actually a great idea. Well, I think we're pretty clear on what happened last Wednesday, time-wise, what everybody missed. And we hope that, everybody out there reaches out to you. What's the best way for people to find you and get in touch with both you guys?
Brian, you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm at Offenbonger, OFFENBONGER, Offenbonger.com, bonger@offenbonger.com is how you can email me. On my website, you can see what we can do to help brands and dispensaries. And I'd love to have the opportunity to talk with anyone that has an interest.
And for us, you can find us on SeedTalent.com. You can email me at Kurt@SeedTalent. connect on LinkedIn. And then one big shout out, if you're a Budtender manager, owner, buyer that is active in the Arizona space and Tangi or Angelica Rodriguez stops by your store, she is a representative of SeedTalent and an absolute dynamo in herself. So spend some time, take 5 minutes, learn about her, learn about what she's trying to do, because she is actively out visiting stores, trying to implement the free versions of SeedTalent to support the Arizona market as we speak. And so she's out in market, and I would love if anybody can make a connection with her.
And how do people actively get in touch with her?
It is going to be Tangi at seedtalent.com, or if you go to almost any industry event, including every single MITA, she'll be the 5'1" person walking around with a ball full of energy.
She's
That's
amazing.
true.
Or
Tangi's
just
at
hit
every
up-
industry event. She's easy to see.
Yeah, she's out there.
Yep, she sure is.
She's awesome.
Well, I know that as soon as I take over a retail dispensary, then I'm going to call you guys.
That'd be
Please
great.
do.
That's
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be great.
that would be one of my first moves.
That would be great. And,
You know?
and Kurt is a huge supporter of this industry. We do, as a different venture, a thing called Budtenders Club, which is an organization, a trade association for budtenders. We do a lot of education. Kurt and SeedTalent has been to our meetings in other states. He's been a huge, huge, huge supporter of the industry. And I wanted to emphasize that because I think it's important that all of us that are part of it work for a collective whole as well.
Yeah.
We're in an emerging space. We're in a space that's evolving very rapidly. And to have good partners like Kurt and SeedTalent to help people along the way, I think is important to emphasize.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Collective scares me because of Star Trek and the board, but that's okay. Just saying. I'm a Captain Kirk kind of guy. Or Jean-Luc Picard. Sorry. Any closing thoughts, ladies?
No, I think this is amazing, and it was great to have you at MITA. And I think everybody needs to take advantage of this, because if you're a management, you need to care about, your employees and your customers. So thank you.
Yeah, it was great to have you on, and we're glad that you came down to our event, educating budtenders, like the fact that they can increase their sales because, culture and customer retention is very important. And some people, I guess, aren't shedding light on it. And it is an emerging industry. It's very new. And, people are familiar with retail in general, but when you're mixing it with cannabis, it's different. It's a whole new other, animal to tackle. And thank you for tackling that animal.
Well, you know what? And thank you to MITA for bringing education to the community. The
Right.
reality of MITA has been very involved in helping shape legislation and direction of the Arizona cannabis space. And to provide education to the community in the way that you're doing is really commendable. And I think it's really important. I want to encourage anyone that is listening to this and has gone through this long. One of the neat things about the way you're doing education is they have the opportunity to get the education and still enjoy the rest of the whole group gathering as well.
Right.
They're not going to miss out on one thing, but they're getting a lot more than they had been getting. So I wanted to make sure they know they could do both.
Yeah, no, people
Yeah.
should love what they do. It almost reminds me of my very first job in the industry with CVS. It's like when you walk in there like, hey, welcome to CVS. It's like you guys
Yeah.
give that. Everyone needs to love what they're doing and learn.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing a budtender should say when somebody walks into the store is welcome home. Glad you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
People want to
true.
feel comfortable right away.
Like, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Which one of us doesn't? For years I went to the same bar and I'd walk in and every single time they'd say welcome home and my drink would be there. And boy, I went there constantly.
Yeah, for me, I worked at Nike, and it was building that relationship. Like I would, meet with customers and I would identify their problem. They're like, what, I need shoes for this. And
But see,
for my daughter,
were you taught that, or was
No,
it
it was just
the
naturally.
management that pushed that in? you?
no, it was naturally
See?
like
Okay.
I felt like, because I'm a
Okay.
problem solver,
Mhm.
they were like, oh, like I just saw them walking around, just kind of looking around. I'm like, oh, is there anything I can help you with? And then they would kind of address the problem. And I'm like, oh, well, I recommend this. And
Yeah.
then just kind of building that relationship. And then it happened so well that they would tell the manager, oh my gosh, like she was so helpful. Like, but you can sense like the genuine nature of it. It's not just like saying, oh, how can I help you? It's like you
Mhm.
can sense that I genuinely cared and wanted to address
And
the
that's
problem.
why it was worked. It was effective. You genuinely cared. You saw
Mhm.
what that customer needed. You made some recommendation that was relevant to them. And guess what? Everybody
Yeah.
felt good about
Mind
it,
you, I
right?
wasn't making commission. I just like wanted to help
Without a
people
doubt.
with fitness.
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep.
So what I realized, Kurt, is that you and Brian are going to come back and give us a report as to what you didn't like at MITA, and we can evaluate how Destinee and Rita performed And I'm just kidding. I'm just
No,
kidding.
send us a scorecard.
Yeah,
We're ready.
I'm just kidding.
We should hop
Fair
in a
enough, no.
dispensary and be budtenders for a day. And how about that? And then the next day, have you hop on and like kind of address the
Yeah.
problems, and it would be a good video.
Post-mortem.
Actually,
I
Right.
actually have worked in dispensaries
Good
as a bud tender. I'm actually certified by
Yeah.
Leafly as a bud tender. And
Okay.
I believe, I don't know if anybody read it or not, but Starbucks has a new CEO. And he made a lot of, got a lot of media attention because he said that he was going to spend one day of his workday a month working in a store. Now, if you stop and you think
Barista.
about it,
Okay.
one work day a month is less than 5% of your work time. If you work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, one day a month is 5% of your work time. I would tend to think if you're running a business, you can find 5% of your time or find a way to spend 5% of your time on what really drives revenue.
yeah,
that's a
be in
great
front
idea.
line,
Yep.
just like the
Yep.
budtenders are. You know, we gotta owe our thanks to budtenders and what they do, and fully recognize them.
Yeah, and I just want to
Well-
end with two, just thanking Mita. I'll be real quick because I know we can be long-winded. As Brian said, I've been to events all over the country. I had the pleasure of doing my first Mita last year, and you guys do have a best-in-class event. It's fun to see an event that brings together, from bud tender to C-suite in one place, bonded over a common passion of the plant. And so we had a great time last week, and we're looking forward to continued participation. We just thank you guys for the role that you play, not just within Arizona, but to the broader cannabis community.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kurt.
I think
Well-
we work great together because Mita and SeedTalent, our events are for budtenders. So us being able to give the
Bud
product
tender with a
out.
dream
To an owner with an exit strategy.
We include bud tenders with dreams
Yep.
because we always say if you're an owner who likes people, you show up to meet the people who are working underneath you. And
Yep.
everyone who's working anywhere within the industry deserves the opportunity to network,
Yep.
to learn more, and to rise up. So we
Yep.
kind of like try to redefine what industry is.
Amen to that.
So excellent. We will see you soon at the next
Yeah.
Meetup. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining
sounds
us.
great.
Thank you for
Thank
having
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk
Thank you.
soon. All right,
That was
bye-bye.
another episode of Mita Unshackled.